Hey guys, what's up? I'm about to give you my thoughts on Starfield. I played it 2 days ago, right when it came out at 2 a.m. I want to give you my thoughts so that maybe you can get a little wiser on what my opinion about it is and whether it's going to be right for you. I've played 90 minutes of Starfields, so I'm not going to be giving you a review on their game or anything like that. I've not 100%ed the game, and if you're wondering why I've only played 90 minutes so far, it came out really late at night for me. And then I had to take a day off yesterday because I was really tired from a couple of things. So I got a little bit of extra sleep yesterday. So first, my history with Bethesda games. I've played Daggerfall, Oblivion and Morrowind, which are Elder Scrolls 2, 3 and 4. And I played each of them happily and I found them to be very gripping. Most of these games, I did play them before I got into competitive gaming. So I was kind of a different person. Like now I'm used to the adrenaline of multiplayer competitive games. And those games are all primarily single-player RPGs, so I wasn't sure that if I could enjoy RPGs the same way anymore. That is until Baldur's Gate 3, when I realized, yes I can. If it is really good, and the story is gripping, and the art is beautiful, and the music is beautiful, it definitely has a huge impact on me, and Baldur's Gate 3 was a very cathartic moment for me, where I realized that I do still enjoy RPGs, if they're good. So, I had pretty high hopes for Starfield, even though I've fallen in love with multiplayer competitive games like Warcraft 3, StarCraft 1 and 2, Heroes of the Storm and Dota 2. I felt I was going to enjoy Starfield based on the focus on exploration, the size of the world, the universe, the mystery and RPG elements. I always enjoyed leveling up my skills in the Elder Scrolls, like in Daggerfall, jumping, you get jumping skill, running, you get running skill. And if you had chosen those as core primary skills, then you would level up directly from leveling up those skills. I don't even know how that works yet inside Starfield because I haven't got that far yet. But this is why I thought I will enjoy a Bethesda game and I will enjoy Starfield. Let's start first with the list of things I didn't like too much as I started the game. I felt that the music cuts out too often. Most modern games have a setting that if you tap out of a game, you can have the music keep playing in the background. And Starfield does not have that. I find that to be a pretty big oversight, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine. It irritates me because I feel like it's immersion breaking. Even if I wasn't a streamer, sometimes feeling forced to alt-tab for a moment to manage something in a Windows, where I would want Starfield music to continue and not let my chat know that I'm tabbing out, which is an immersion breaker. Even if I wasn't a streamer, the way that I play games off stream is still like that, where I like to have a continuous vibe going with the game music. If I don't like it, I'll just hit a button and mute it myself. I don't need the game to do that for me. So every time I tab out, music cuts out. I don't love it. Then, not an amazing FPS performance to begin with. I did realize that VSync is on by default. I generally don't like using VSync. I don't feel like I need it, and it makes things feel more swimmy. My cursor swims after where I feel like it should be, and I did end up turning it off eventually. Then the combat. Combat, not exactly my favorite type. I always like the sword swinging in Daggerfall, interlaced with spellcasting more than the gun combat that I've had so far in Starfield. One of the biggest gripes maybe is that the humans are not animated very realistically. So when you first see the characters in Starfield, this is actually one of the better moments, also because they're not as close face up. But when you end up looking people in the face, they have a kind of lifeless look. I also tried interacting with the environment, as I feel like probably many people will try to do. Lasering people with my 4 damage mining gun didn't seem to bother them at all. Unlike in The Simpsons, the goggles do something rather than the goggles do nothing. So yeah, they didn't seem to be any worse for the wear for me lasering them right in their eyes. But it turns out that these characters actually had plot armor because later characters did mind that I lasered them right in the next scene. Their head would bobble around like a bobblehead when I lasered them, and they would say, "Hey, watch it." But it still didn't do them any damage. Like this guy is like, "Hey, watch it." It's like, "Oh, watch it," but no damage. So that's definitely a bit of a departure from how it is done in Divinity Original Sin and in Baldur's Gate, where pretty much every character is killable in some way. Many objects are destroyable or movable, and I didn't feel that level of freedom here. Reminds me a lot of when Peter Molyneux's Black and White came out, and the other game where you could choose your species. What was it called? You could develop your creature and it would like eventually go to space. Spore. Both of those games promised a great level of customizability and full interactivity with the world, and also didn't really end up being like that. Now, Starfield didn't promise that, but perhaps this is something that I hope for or expect in a game, and the interactivity was a little bit lower. Every time you do kill something and you defeat an enemy, there's a pop-up of +5 XP or +15 XP. I already saw this in the trailers of Starfield, and I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it now. It's right in the middle, which seems like prime real estate for keeping visual clutter away. Right in the middle, while you're still fighting other creatures, in the middle of the screen it says +5 XP, and I feel like that should be more off to the side rather than in the middle. It's a message that's going to be quite repetitive as you take down opponents, and I didn't feel like it should be there. Unlike Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield doesn't autosave before important moments, though you could argue that that is a little bit of a spoiler. In Divinity or Baldur's Gate, when you're about to get massively forced to give up, generally there's an autosave, and that's when you realize you're about to be attacked. In Starfield, that didn't happen, so without giving any spoilers, the first time where you get attacked as a surprise attack in Starfield, the game isn't saved. I ended up dying, and then I had to sit through all kinds of dialogue again, which was unskippable. So autosaving could be at better timings, in my opinion, before big fights, especially if they're ambushes, which this was. Then about dialogue. The dialogue did not feel like it is on the same quality as Baldur's Gate. And I know I'm doing the very thing that journalists warned us about not to do, that game devs warned us about not to do, comparing everything to Baldur's Gate 3. And I wouldn't like to be compared to the smartest kid in the class either when my school report gets evaluated by my parents. But it is what it is. We're sitting right next to each other, so they're going to make comparisons, even if they're unfavorable. And it felt like that the dialogue wasn't that good. I like to think even if I hadn't experienced Baldur's Gate 3, I still wouldn't feel like the dialogue was particularly good. At least for me, it failed to grip me. It felt relatively surface level, superficial conversation between NPCs that didn't really feel like they matter to me. And I think that's important in a story, that you care about the characters that you're interacting with. And I know none of these characters matter, they're just the tutorial characters, but there is a way where you can introduce characters where they do feel like they matter. The characters don't look that lifelike, the NPCs, and their story didn't matter to me. There was no emotional connection, and perhaps that's not the goal for them, but for me, therefore I didn't care what they were saying, but I also couldn't skip the dialogue, so I had to sit through it, which felt like torture. I think games should be fun right from the start. The first minute, the first hour, the first 2 hours, I want to feel like I'm being spoiled. I want the inner ear caressed with dulcet tones of the music. I want the graphics to be on point for telling the story that they are meant to tell. The characters should look good. And that's not to mean that everything should look hyper modern, but this is a game that has like $2 billion of investment over 8 years of development. So I guess I did expect a little more. I can enjoy indie games that have less high fidelity graphics, and that's fine. It's not like I only want the best from now on, but I did expect a little bit more here for Bethesda's Starfield. When you do get to skip something in Starfield, you often have to hold down a button. As a high APM strategy gamer, I don't like to hold buttons unnecessarily. If I hit delete to delete a building in Age of Empires, I want it to be a single hit. And if I misclick, woe is me. In Starfield, if I want to skip something, I want to skip it with an escape key or another key. I don't want to hold the tab key for 3 seconds or 2 seconds in order to go to the next screen. When I opened the minimap, the only way to close the minimap was press M again, which is also the hotkey to open it, which is fine. Press M, open map, press M, close it. But I also expect escape to also close the minimap. But escape actually zoomed it out 4 times before finally the 5th escape would get you out of the minimap again. It was tab that closes the minimap, which to me is weird. Normally tab cycles to the next space. So I feel like tab and escape are inverted in their priority of usage while you're inside a minimap. And I have to hold the tab instead of pressing it once to close it, which it just feels slow to me, unnecessarily slow. And it very much feels like a protection against misclickers. It feels console aimed, like for the Xbox, not for the PC. I feel like PC are generally more power users, Xbox maybe more casual, so maybe they are like more likely to misclick. I don't know if that's true or not, but even if they want to have that level of protection, I would like them to allow me to turn it off, where I don't have to hold down anything. I can just press a button and do the thing. Enough on that. I know this is important to me. It may not be important to you. Then, when it came to the gameplay, many aspects felt akin a bit to another game that I recently tried, EVE Online. There's a heavy focus on training skills before using them, and then using them, all inside a UI and space that feels quite unstimulating and sterile, like this character creation screen here. And it did not poke or stimulate my imagination much. But even worse than that, whatever music you have as you get into the menu, as you first open Starfield, that was pretty good. And I feel like it sets the vibe for Starfield well. The opening audio for Starfield is good. But then, once you get to character creation, which is about 5-10 minutes into the game via conversation with some people, some NPCs, all sound is taken away. This scene has no music whatsoever. It's just quiet, which I think is a poor choice for character creation. Again, it doesn't stimulate me that much. I would like there to be some cool space music, and there wasn't, so I had to run my own music so I don't feel like it's too quiet. It made me not want to spend a lot of time here and design my character. Then, during the tutorial as you start the game, people ask you to gather some resources. There seems to be in Starfield, the way I understand the game, you have a main campaign that can take 30 to 50 hours. Then there's a lot of open world exploration with 1,000 planets, 100 of which are inhabited. A lot of it is generated via different procedures and different terrains. There's going to be aliens. I don't know if there's going to be intelligent aliens. I've seen some footage of that. And then there's going to be all kinds of quests. There's going to be guilds that you can join and do quests for, just like in the other Elder Scrolls games. And this all sounds pretty fun. But a lot of the planets that are uninhabited, and in general, planets, they're going to have resources you can mine. And you do this by aiming a mining laser at it. So you go to a planet, you start mining resources. My idea of fun in a game is not pointing a laser at rocks on the floor or on a mountain face and repetitively gathering resources over and over, which is a little ironic because I basically built my life on gathering resources in Warcraft 3. But in Warcraft 3, my workers do the work for me. There's a certain level of automation there that I find quite acceptable. I train 12 workers. They go mine the gold and the wood. They do so automatically, and I get the ASMR pitter-patter of them chopping trees, and I get the resources. Same in StarCraft 2. But here, I am the peon, and I have to do it myself. Alone, and not automated. So I have to go look at rocks and then laser them and get resources. I don't think that's fun gameplay. I think it's boring. Just like fishing in World of Warcraft. I think it's busy work, and I think that most players are able to put their imagination and their thinking power to more challenging thoughts, and they will feel like it's more satisfying. Some people may not mind, because partially games can be an escape, and maybe this is like busy work that you can just kind of get lost in like a trance. But that's not why I'm playing Starfield or why I'm playing games, to just forget about myself. So I prefer to have some gameplay that is more stimulating. That was the list of things that I didn't like. The things I liked, when I finally got to the ship near the end of the game and I got inside the ship, it looked pretty good. Nice detail, nice art. But unfortunately, by this time I was so bored that I didn't feel like playing anymore. And I ended up closing the game and refunding the game. So I didn't like too much. I will still be checking out some other people's streams to see if maybe I missed out on something and if maybe Starfield has some cool parts, but I feel like there's too many parts that I didn't enjoy as much. As such, maybe the game just isn't for me. I would give it, again, this is not a review, but I would give it like a 4 out of 10. I have seen different review scores go around, the most infamous one being IGN USA's 7 out of 10. I think that's probably fair. It really just may not be the kind of game for me. But for those that do know me or were interested in my thoughts, these are them, and hope you found it useful. I would not recommend the game right now at a $70 price tag to other people, but if you think I'm wrong, that I didn't stick with it long enough, that the fun comes later, do let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. These were mine. Thanks for watching. See you next time.